let's jump into this thing. Todd, start off by introducing yourself, what it is you used to do, and why we're having this conversation to begin with.
My name's Todd Dulin, Customer Success Manager here at TraceGains. And previous to TraceGains, I was on the corporate quality team for Bellisio Foods, frozen food manufacturer. And while at Bellisio Foods, I helped manage their supplier management and supplier compliance modules, and helped lead the implementation of TraceGains quality management module at their Jackson, Ohio manufacturing facility. So, obviously was really passionate and about the TraceGains product, and wanted to work as much as possible with it. So here I am.
Awesome. And so you're one of our few CSMs that's actually worked on the other side of the desk, right? And now here you are assisting customers with so many of the issues that you had when you were, working for Bellisio, right?
Right. And that's one of the favorite parts about my job is, having been there, knowing what they're going through, and helping them work through those problems and those questions. And more importantly, helping them improve their business processes, specifically around quality and manufacturing. So it's great to still be a part of the business and be on the other side for sure.
And so when you were at Bellisio, one of the big projects that you tried to tackle was to implement QM, right? You tried to automate your plant floor process, right?
Correct. Yep. So like a lot of food companies still today, and for a long time, our production floor quality checks were pen and paper. And the idea behind automating that is to get real-time visibility to what's going on the production floor, to gain numerous benefits. But it's a daunting task, so we encountered a lot of questions and a lot of fears, and we had to overcome those, and but it was absolutely the right thing to do, and leaps and bounds had huge benefits to the business.
That's excellent. And really, it's those fears that we're talking about today, right? Because ultimately, this training video is aimed at helping those who are interested in automating their existing plant floors, right, to get away from those fears, right? So you are here to prove that those fears are not only unfounded, but you've got some really great success metrics that demonstrate if you can get past those fears, like look at these awesome outcomes, right? So let's start off by painting the picture of Bellisio. Give me an idea of what this facility looks like that you had to automate.
Sure. So Bellisio, as I said, has a manufacturing facility in Jackson, Ohio. It's around 1 million square feet with 20 production lines running 2, sometimes 3 shifts a day. They make 2 million frozen meals a day. So it's a massive facility. So obviously, changing a process this important in a facility this big was a big task.
Right. And what was that initial reaction, right? When you said, listen, leadership, we need to automate this thing. What was that knee-jerk response?
Well, this is a huge project. How are we going to do this? How much is it going to cost?
Right.
We have 20 other projects going on. Where does this one fall in priority? All those questions of, why should we do this? We can't really afford to do this. We don't have the time for this, all those things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So, overall, you saw the value in it, but it was your primary job function to convince the leadership that you needed to do it. And you successfully did, right?
I think that was one of the most difficult things about the implementation and the project, for sure. And nothing against them. They're running a business, and they have to make the right decisions every step of the way. And this was a big decision, a big project to take on. So selling leadership on this is going to be beneficial to us. It's going to save us money. It's going to improve our business, make our food safer. No matter the upfront cost. Was a challenge, but I had to put my salesman hat on, and we got it done, and it worked out. So
Awesome. Well, here's how we're going to train or turn this into training content, right? One of the things that we love to do on the customer education team is gamify stuff, right? Because if you can create some kind of game around the content, it makes it stickier and it makes it a little bit easier to learn, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take those 5 fears that you had told me about that Bellisio had before you implemented QM, and I'm going to give you the option to select one fear at a time in whatever order you want to go. All right. When you click on that box, it's going to show you a quote. All right. It's going to say, the leadership at some point along the way said this very thing. All right. So your job is to play I told you so. Right. And give them 2 or 3 just really solid data points that prove that this fear was unfounded to begin with. Does that make sense?
Okay. Got it.
Okay. All right. So here you've got all 5 options, and let's review what these are, right? The first fear was time, then budget, followed by resources, then training, and ultimately it was change management, right? How are we going to handle all of this? All right, so Todd, here we go. We're going to play I Told You So. Which bucket of fear do you want to start with?
Ooh, let's start with budget for 200, please.
Budget for 200 it is. All right, and here's the quote. We can't afford this. How did you combat this fear?
Well, in not so many words, I said we can't not afford to do this. The upfront cost of purchasing the software, any devices or additional technology you might need is really a drop in the bucket compared to the overall savings and benefits you're going to see from implementing and automating your quality processes. A few examples of the cost savings are, labor hours reduced by making their job easier and faster. Creating paper forms versus doing it electronically within a system, reviewing them in real time. Again, getting them over that hurdle and that initial fear of, how much is this going to cost us? And we put together some numbers to let them know this is our estimate. This is how much it's going to save us year 1, year 2, 5 years down the road. That's all I got on that.
Yeah. So really, it was about saying like, you cannot afford to not do this. The benefits were simply too great.
Correct. And the risk of not doing it and going forward the same old way of pen and paper, you continue to perpetuate the risk of what if something happens. You don't know what's going on out there. If you have another issue, someone could get sick, you could have a recall. So also, not making a change, you continue to kind of, tread water and just cross your fingers and hope that something doesn't happen.
Right.
Where if you automate, you have a better, again, visibility and knowledge of what's going on, and you can get ahead of things and see things coming rather than, be proactive versus reactive.
So in terms of that money, that cost savings, how much money did Bellisio save just that first year by switching over to QM?
So first year was upwards of a couple $100,000. Again, okay. Just labor costs and reduction in issues, which usually lead to having to dump product. So, not losing product and just saving time, and, time saves you labor hours and cost.
Excellent. Very cool. All right, let's jump over to the other buckets here. All right, so you have successfully tackled the budget piece. Which of these top 5 fears do you want to go after next?
Ooh, how about change management?
Change management. This is one that I think a lot of companies are going to struggle with or think they're going to struggle with, because here's the quote, right? This is the way it's always been done, right? You're going to have to break some really old bones in some cases. So what kind of, advice do you give to really counter this unfounded fear?
Right. Well, another one, and a lot of these fears are just that initial hurdle, getting things going. And then once you're over that hump, things get easier and people get it. The change aspect, yeah, you're right that it's always been done with pen and paper, no other way. So you're changing a process that's always been the same, and you're changing it for everyone. I think a couple things to point out on, it's going to benefit everyone as well, this change. It's going to make their jobs easier, faster, maybe even a little more interesting and fun for them. And it's necessary. So I think, it's important to engage, get them on board, almost, build up that excitement, that this is going to help them. A lot of changes within companies maybe doesn't affect everyone and doesn't affect everyone positively, and it's difficult. But I think really voicing that this is going to benefit everyone and the company as a whole is really helpful.
Now, Bellisio did something super special here, right? Didn't you actually incorporate like the staff along the way so that it wasn't this big surprise that showed up, but rather it was kind of something that was kind of grown internally?
Yep, absolutely. So as we were configuring the site and kind of working on things in the back end, we were busy, promoting out on the plant floor that this is coming, this is happening. And then, yes, engaged, everybody on the floor, which benefited us implementing as well as the users, to give them a first look at it, kind of a light training of this is what it's going to look like. And then also getting their feedback and what they like, what they don't like, which helped us to fine tune things and get it just right before we officially rolled out. So it's really valuable for both us, the folks implementing it, as well as the future users of it as well.
Gotcha. Excellent. So that was a critical step in creating ownership, right? Is getting everybody on board and everybody a part of the project. I think it's a brilliant way to go. All right. So you've tackled two boxes successfully. Which of the remaining three do you want to go after? Time, resources, or training?
Let's do training.
Training. All right. Okay, so you pitch this thing, and the quote that comes out is, how are we supposed to train all of these people? You've already talked about how, get them on board and let them know it's coming, get that ownership. But when it comes time to actually implement this thing, how did you get around to training folks for, a facility that's, over 1 million square feet?
Yeah, it's a legitimate fear, and it's a big piece of the puzzle when you're implementing, because once you make that switch, these are your quality checks in your food manufacturing process. And if you lose one, you miss one, it's not right. You might have to hold or dump that food, or you might have an issue. So you better make sure it's working and that you've trained the people how to use it adequately. So, similar to, advocating and promoting that change and involving folks, training was the same way. And it was a big question from leadership. As I said, over 300 future users on the floor that we would have to train. But getting them involved early and getting them a look at it, a feel for it, training users and only what they're going to need to be using within the site. Not every user on the floor is doing the same task and will need to use the same portion of the site or all the site for that matter. So, teach them what they need to know and only that, so they can be proficient and expert at it.
So Bellisio is not insulated from attrition, right? Like, you have folks who are going to turn over on a regular basis as well. Now, what are the advantages, though, of bringing new staff members on board, right after you implemented QM?
Well, it's a good point. Well, now you only have to train them. So, all your current users, you'll have to transition and train them a new process. Future staff will only be trained within the system. And additionally, now you can manage all of that training material and those people who have been trained within the site. So you can know who's been trained, what they've been trained in, if they need to have, recurring training monthly, annually, whatever. You can set up the system so it'll let you know if someone's due for a training, so you can manage all of that and see that in there. Another thing to keep in mind too, you're not teaching them a new job or new skill. Their job is still the same. You're just teaching them a different way of inputting that data that they're collecting. So instead of writing it on a piece of paper, now they're putting it into an iPad or a computer terminal. So it's not, you're not changing everything they do, just one piece of their job. And again, as I said earlier, it's maybe a little more exciting and different than pen and paper. So they might take to it a little quicker and more
Mhm.
easily and be excited about it. So all those things. Um, and one last thing as well, once you've trained a handful of users, specifically some super users, then they can train their coworkers and on
Right.
down the line. So you use those people that have become proficient and know the system to help train others. So
Nice.
all those things help make the training go much faster. Because up front it does seem like a daunting task, but it can be done.
Absolutely. Yeah, the train the trainer model is absolutely the most efficient way to go. All right, so you have successfully gotten through 3 of these things. We've got 2 more remaining. So we've got time or resources. Which one would you like to play? I told you so.
Ooh, how about time?
Time it is. All right, this is a huge concern for companies, right? When they say we simply don't have time for this. Speak to this point a little bit.
Well, just like, we can't afford this, but you actually can't afford not to do it. Same thing with time. When you say we don't have the time for this, you need to think about the long-term time savings you're going to have with this. And, current processes around paper, how much time you spend creating paper forms, reviewing paper forms, um, and how much time and money that is going to save you.
Mhm.
Bellisio cut that time down. They had, a handful of people that their job was to create the paper forms and packets for every production line every day.
Right.
And then they had folks that review them at the end of every shift as well.
Mhm.
Bellisio cut that time down by 80 or 90%, I believe. So, what used to take them an hour or two every day just printing and creating forms, now they do in a matter of minutes with a couple clicks of a mouse within the site. Um, Additionally, they can now review those forms in real time throughout the day rather than waiting till the end of the shift. So all of that, saves tons of time, and in turn will save them lots of money.
And what about reporting? How did you use reporting on the floor?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can report on now. Another huge benefit to QM in general is now you can report on any piece of data that you're collecting on the site. So you can report on if checks are late, common reoccurrences, where there are frequent issues on certain lines, certain areas of the plant, certain products. So now you can nail down where those common reoccurring issues are, and fix them once and for all,
Right.
and save time and money there as well.
Perfect. Excellent. All right, so we've got one last bucket here, and that is the bucket of resources. All right, are you ready for this quote? Here we go. So we simply don't have anyone to do this. Now I know this is unique to you because you weren't exactly working with like an army of, colleagues to get this done, right?
Right? No, there's 2 of us, and we had our existing day jobs. And then we took this on. So, in a perfect world, you'd have a dedicated resource or 2
Mhm.
to manage and implement this project, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
Uh, if we look back at the time savings you're going to have, as you implement and roll this out, you can use those time savings to add resources, reallocate some of that time that people are saving now towards this project.
Mhm.
Um, and also when people make that transition, where they have normally been managing things in paper, whether it's a process or people, now they can manage that within the system and become experts, and help support the project and implementation, training. So while there was a lot of heavy lifting early on, with just a couple of us, we quickly grew, as other people became available because we automated. They had more time. They were able to help us with the project, and support the project.
Gotcha. So that was really an indirect benefit, right? You freed up some time over there so that you can reapply it somewhere else. Awesome. All right, Todd. So let's recap each one of these things, and if you could specifically list where Bellisio Foods moved the needle in each one of these particular buckets, and let's start off with time. So where was the needle actually moved?
Oh, I mean, it's interesting. It went from we don't have any time, but for the wrong reasons, to now we've got lots of time, um, for all the right reasons, and are able to do so many other things, and manage the business better, and keep an eye on, I think the most important aspect of the business is making sure the food is safe, and you don't have any issues. So the needle on time moved a huge amount.
Perfect. All right, let's go over to budget. How did the needle move in terms of budget at Bellisio Foods?
I think really well also. I think with the budget and this project, I don't think it's necessarily about saving all this money. Well, that's great. I think the most important piece is, again, getting visibility to what's going on in the production floor, preventing and catching issues, keeping the food safe, and automating absolutely does that. And saving money is just, icing on the cake. And they've saved a ton of money.
Excellent. All right, let's go into resources, which we just talked about. So explain a little bit where the needle moved from A to B in terms of resources for Bellisio Foods.
Similar to time. I mean, they were strapped. Everybody was running in every direction, trying to keep up with things. Managing everything manually and on paper, and just trying to not have an issue, to now, everybody's excited about the project, wants to be a part of it. Everybody's, they have more time to work on this project, something they're excited about. And I think, being able to, again, allocate resources a little better, but also have everybody enjoying their work more, makes it better for everyone, for sure.
Perfect. And then to piggyback off of that, I think training is a great segue. So where was the needle moved in terms of training?
That was huge. Training in paper, previous to automating, was a task. I mean, training is an ongoing task, constant task in the food industry, as we were talking about earlier with attrition. You're constantly training. They have people on staff that literally just train new employees all the time. Mm-hmm. But it's much, much easier now that it's automated, because the forms are much more straightforward, much easier to read and fill out. So training goes that much quicker. It's easier, again, more exciting for the user. And then again, you can manage all of the training you've done and need to do within the site.
And then the last piece is going to be that culture piece, right? That change management. What does the idea of change look like now at Bellisio, compared to before you went through this process?
Well, they've never stopped, which is a good thing. They're still moving forward, and now that they've automated everything, now they can see everything. They know what's going on everywhere. So they're fixing things here and fixing things there, and improving processes ever they can. And now they're finding other things that they can do, mm-hmm. to make other things more efficient and faster and save more money. So it's just given them another tool to just improve everything around quality on the production floor.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's exactly why I wanted to play I Told You So, because that sums it up perfectly right there. All of those fears that they initially had, whether it's time, resources, budget, it doesn't matter. They all yielded really fruitful outcomes that allowed them the opportunity to find new ways to improve that were simply not clear to them before they switched over. All right, Todd, so you've got the ears and eyes of folks who are trying to convince their leadership teams to automate their plant floors. All right, this is your time to give them advice, right? How do they do it? Give them some pro tips.
Well, kind of to, highlight everything we went through and all the different topics. All those things are true, that it's going to save you money. It's going to save you time. It's going to drive excitement throughout your business, about a positive change, change that will make jobs easier for a lot of people. And again, a little more exciting, hopefully. It's going to improve the business as a whole, reduce the risk to the business, not only from a food safety standpoint, but, financial risk. Mm-hmm. It's a big leap to take, but I advise that, you set aside the money and the time, and get the people around you excited about it. and take that leap, because it's going to be hugely beneficial to your company. And I think a big recommendation I would have, if you're a leader trying and wanting to implement this in your facility or with your company, is find some folks who are passionate and excited about this. Empower them and trust them to lead it and implement it for you, and that'll go a long way as to it being successful.
Perfect. Excellent. I think those are really good pieces of advice. All right, Todd, I think we've got everything that we need. Anything else that you want to throw out before you wrap up?
Nope. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Cool. All right. Thanks, man.